cloud. Okay, good. So Sandra Frank, the CEO of All Face Food Bank, please tell us about your organization in general. What is your mission in normal times, when there's not a pandemic, and how do you normally carry out that mission?
Certainly. So I also want to thank the Federation for their long-term support of All Faiths Food Bank. Rabbi Brenner and the Temple have been with us since day one, at least that I'm aware of. I'm so appreciative. And as you all know, I was thrilled to death, thrilled to be able to do this webinar. This is so exciting for me. And I'm really grateful to be a part of it. And I'm looking forward to getting going more and better. How wonderful. This is a brilliant idea. So I'm thrilled to be here and thank you. So All Faiths Food Bank would be characterized as more of a regional food bank. And we are the only food bank serving this particular area. We are a member of Feeding America, which is a national organization and the largest charitable relief organization in the United States. There are 200 food banks that are part of Feeding America. Our services, we feed families, individuals, and people who are at or below the federal poverty level, and also ALICE families. ALICE families are those who are working full-time or part-time. They're working, but they don't have sufficient funds to cover the basic costs of living. And right now, right here in our Sarasota area, over 30% of the population qualifies for the distributions that we provide. And as Brenner mentioned, half the kids, half the students are on the free and reduced meal programs. In terms of our funding, we are primarily funded through individuals and foundations. We basically don't receive government grants and contracts. We have a small contract with the county, which we're very grateful for, but primarily it's individual and foundation support. Mission, healthy solutions to end hunger in our community. What we look like is we're a warehouse. And a lot of people don't know the difference between a food bank and a pantry. I'm sitting in a facility that looks like a Sam's Club. So we've got a massive warehouse with racks to the ceiling full of food. Not full of food right now, but we'd like it to be. About 80% of what we receive, what we distribute, is donated, which has been a real challenge. I can only say that word, understate that word, challenge, with the pandemic that's happened. We have a fleet of trucks that delivers the food out to 200 to 230 different agencies and programs. And our business model, which there are other business models, but ours does not provide food from the facility. This is a warehouse. And we also don't receive or distribute prepared meals of any kind. So there are many different models, and I imagine that we'll be hearing about that from Lauren as well. So that's the structure that we have. We also do a lot of programming, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with the programs for seniors, veterans, and kids. Last year, we distributed about 215,000 backpacks full of food for kids over the weekend. We have mobile farm markets and mobile pantries and school pantries and pantries in the Boys and Girls Clubs and other places. And as Brenda mentioned, over the summer, this summer food program, because when school is out, hunger begins. So that's kind of an overview.
No, perfect.
Have I
No,
touched
we're going to
on
come
it?
back to you with 6 more questions. So thank you, Sandra Frank. Thank you for being here today.
Oh,
Thank you
it's my
for
pleasure.
all the work that you and everyone on your staff does day in and day out. We depend on you, and we're really grateful that you're here and what you do. We're going to turn now to Lauren Yoqhed, and I'm going to spotlight you. See her. I believe she's coming to us from the Garden State of New Jersey. And Lauren is the CEO of the American Friends of Yoqhed, Israel's National Food Bank. Lauren, can you just tell us again, before we get to the pandemic, just tell us in normal times about Yoqhed. What does Yoqhed do? What is Yoqhed's mission? And how does Yoqhed normally carry that out?
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rabbi Glickman, everyone at the Federation, Women's Giving Circle, Kim, Denise. It's really great to be a part of this. And also thank you to Sandra. I've been to your facility and it's quite an impressive endeavor that you have going there. So it's great to see you here and be together today with you. So for those who don't know Yoqhed, we are Israel's national food bank and largest food rescue organization. We rescue about 40 million pounds of fresh, perishable food each year. That's about 2.5 million hot meat meals and all different types of fruits and vegetables. So probably around 70 different types each year. And we take that food and we distribute it to about 200,000 Israelis in need each week. We're doing this with our own vehicles. We have our own staff, about 50,000 volunteers annually in a normal year. Of course, nothing is normal this year, but typically we have about 50,000 volunteers, federation groups, birthright, bar and bat mitzvah families. So we rely very heavily on volunteer support. And we're really unique in that we're the only organization in Israel that's doing food rescue. So we don't normally purchase any food. All of the 40 million pounds that I mentioned, that's all coming to us for free. It's all surplus, excess food. The majority of it, again, coming from farmers, but also a very significant amount coming from hotels, caterers. The IDF is one of our biggest partners because there's just so much excess food in Israel and really in all Western countries. In Israel, the estimate is around 30 to 40%. Here in the States, it's closer to 50%. So it's a lot of food being unnecessarily destroyed every single day. And we feel that it's a shame to throw that fresh, healthy food in the garbage when about a quarter of the population in Israel are living below the poverty line. So our mission is really quite simple and clear. We just take excess food from those who have too much and we move it to people who need it. Again, about 200,000 Israelis of all different backgrounds each week. And we rely on support from all around the world, from people in different countries, of course, right here in the States. We're fortunate to have a lot of support in Sarasota, thanks to all of you. We get very little from the government at this point, something that we're certainly working on, but we really depend very heavily on support from private individuals and federations and foundations.
Lauren, I'm going to go over the next question to you first, but first I just want to say from all of us, thank you for taking the time to be with us today, but thank you for doing your work. I could say I feel a guilt in me that I'm not in Israel doing my part, and serving and distributing food to the people who are in need. And I'm just so grateful to have Yoqhed as a place where I can simply make a donation and know that that work is getting done. And so we're really thankful to you and to everyone in your organization for what you do. So my next question, you're already on the spotlight. You're at center stage. We'll go with you first, and then to Sandra Frank next. I'm going to ask. This is, I guess, a two-parter. The first, I want to ask about how pandemic is affecting collection, and then about distribution of food. So let's just start with the collection. The pandemic hit. What changed immediately on how you normally collect food?
Sure, it's a great question. So the biggest change that we had is we went from collecting about 9,000 to 10,000 meals, so fresh, surplus, cooked meals every single day, to 0, pretty much overnight. And that's because all of the hotels shut down, the restaurants shut down, everything just closed. And we had no sources of cooked meals. So this had the potential to be catastrophic for us. We decided we needed to pivot, and very, very quickly, because there are, as I mentioned, thousands of people depending on us every single day for food. So what we ended up doing was, even though we are a food rescue organization and we don't ever buy food, we started purchasing up to 12,000 meals per day at the peak of the pandemic, which was not an easy thing to manage or coordinate, not to mention the cost. a meal normally costs around 94 cents or so to rescue it. So that means, collecting it from the Army base or the hotel and distributing it to the nonprofit organization. But obviously purchasing food is a much more expensive thing to do. So we're talking around $6 per meal. So that was a huge change for us, not something we've ever done before, but we went to our supporters who really, understood the situation right away and wanted to help, wanted to be supportive. And we were able to do that and to purchase thousands of meals each day. We had the exact opposite problem with produce, or I shouldn't say problem, it was a good thing for us, a terrible situation for farmers. All of the farmers were having their orders canceled. So if they would, normally provide their crops to hotels and restaurants, there just wasn't demand anymore for that. So they were leaving their crops to simply rot in the fields. Food that they had worked so hard to produce for many months, and there just was no one to buy it. So we started getting calls. The phone was ringing off the hook from these farmers asking us to come and collect, fresh produce from them. So we were collecting about, I would say, just millions of pounds, 50 different types of produce from about 310 different farms all across the country, also coming in from packing houses in the first 7 months or so this year. It was about a pound of produce, worked out to about a pound for about 121,000 people per day. So that was how we first ran into problems with the food collection. In terms of how we're getting food now, so as the economy has slowly started to reopen, meal rescue has picked back up again. So now we actually are getting around 4,000 to 5,000 meals per day from Army bases, from hotels. About 20 bases are participating now, about 8 big hotels and some of the corporate cafeterias as well. We still have to supplement. We're still purchasing about 2,000 meals a day. But the biggest problem for us is that coronavirus really killed the buffet, and we, live and die according to the buffet at Yoqhed, because that's where all the waste comes from. That's where all that fresh surplus food, is produced, and we're just there every day to collect it. So without a buffet, our sources have really been hit. The hotels are still open, they're still running, there are still a lot of local internal tourists in Israel, but the buffets are no longer self-service. So now guests can still choose what they want, but they have to place their order basically from behind a transparent screen while a waiter serves them. And as a result, they're eating less, hotels are ordering less, there's less waste, less unused food. So the amount that's available to us has really gone down dramatically. And even with the Army, the food is now being served in single one-time plastic trays that are sealed for the soldiers. So that's a huge problem for us as well. So what we're doing is we're taking all of this, a lot of the resources that we had been putting into cooked meals, and because there's so much surplus produce available right now, we're trying to really ramp that up. So we're doing about 2,200 tons per month compared to normal times, which would be around 1,500 tons. And just to give you an example of quantities, just in June alone, we provided about 6 million pounds of produce, which is something like around 2 million more than we would normally do in a month. So we're trying to accommodate, produce rescue and get to as many farmers as we can so that they don't lose those crops and people are able to access that fresh, nutritious food.
Thank you. You actually answered my next 2 questions as well. So that was phenomenal. And it really gives us a window into what's going on in Israel that we don't get to see. Thank you. I'm going to go back to Sandra Frank and ask her the same question. Locally here in Sarasota County, before we talk about the need, let's just talk about how you acquire food typically. What happened when the pandemic hit? How did it affect your normal ability to collect food as a food bank?
Somewhat similar situation, although our business model is different. So with the lockdown, as you all know, everything came to a halt, including the food bank. So there were no volunteers, there were no food drives. Our entire food supply chain collapsed. Our food distribution model, as a result, had to change because of social distancing. Our agencies completely shut down for a period of time. So it was just a crisis like all of us. This food bank had never experienced. We would typically receive donated food from our retail partners, the Publix, the Walmarts, and that's about 80% of what we receive. And when you think about April, May, the shelves at your Publix were empty. They were empty. And if you remember the meat counter, you might get chicken wings. There just wasn't anything on those counters. And that moves through the food chain to us. As I said, that food supply chain just completely collapsed. That's how we normally acquire food, and perhaps 12% or less, 10% is purchased. And that's because, what's donated isn't a perfect meal, doesn't make a full meal. So we would purchase supplemental food to help families have, a well-rounded, nutritious meal. Another thing that happened immediately, and I'm sure you all know this, is what we didn't anticipate was the unemployment factor. People went into work the morning of the lockdown and were sent home midday. So they went from being gainfully employed to being unemployed for who knows how long. And that really did hit us in about 2 weeks after that lockdown. One of the funny things, I'll tell a little story about that later. I'll tell a story about it later. So our normal collection processes, our trucks would go out to the retail, to the grocers, and they would load up the truck and we'd bring it back here, sort it, inventory it, and then send it back out to the agencies. And the distributions, that all came to a stop. And I would say it was for a period of time beyond stressful. I'm sure Lauren experienced it that way too. Many sleepless nights as we tried to understand what was happening, how long it would happen, and what we would do. We were able to get a little bit ahead of the run because in early March, we started buying a little bit of food, but it became clear that purchasing food was going to be the answer, for time to come. And we were spending $500,000 to $600,000 a month to purchase food. Typically, we would distribute, like last year, 14 million, 15 million pounds of food. It's changed a lot now, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But it all came to a screeching halt, and it meant that internally here we had to redesign our food distribution model. We couldn't just hand out food. Everything had to be boxed, and we had no volunteers to do that. So our staff, our dear staff, were down in the warehouse 8 hours a day, packing these boxes and bags of food to make sure that we could get that out to people. And then we went to the drive-through models that you probably are seeing now or hearing about because of the no-touch policies. We're still doing drive-throughs, and we're going to be doing them for a long time to come.
Wow, Sandra, I'm so glad you shared that because I was really deeply moved when I heard about what your staff had done. This is true of Yoqhed, it is true of all faiths. These are people who hear the call of those who are most in need. And Sandra said it kept her up at night. That's what it means to be working in food distribution. You know the hunger is there. The hunger is there. You hear their cries, and it torments you. And to see that affect your entire staff, when normally how many is it with 3,000-4,000 volunteers every year? 5,000 volunteers.
They're the secret to our success, are these volunteers.
For all the business people there, imagine you had a workforce of 5,000 people who suddenly stopped coming in one day all at once, and were left you with 20, your regular staff, and that staff just doing everything to make it go. I'm so proud of them and so grateful of your whole team. So I'm going to ask you to take us to the next one. So both you and Lauren described how basically in one day the inflow of food ended for
Ended.
you. Like it just ended at the exact moment that the need, where this great unemployment and the need arose. Tell us about how the need has grown here in Sarasota, and who's vulnerable in our community right now.
So just a note about something Lauren said. We had the same phenomenon with the farmers and the dairy farmers. And we tried to buy as much as we could from both and do mass distributions, like 4,000 people at a time, to help those who are hungry and those who basically lost their livelihood as a result of to farming, I mean. We did our best to help as much as we could. With regard to the need that's going on now, I hope everyone who's listening understands that there isn't a short-term solution to this, that people are unemployed and going to stay that way for a period of time. We are so dependent on hospitality and service industries here, and that's what's been hit hardest by COVID. When and if they'll be able to go back to work, the question is, will that business, will that restaurant still be operating? And will that job even be available for them? So we are looking at, in terms of need, at least another year of this continuing. When we look at our numbers today, I said that we distributed 14 million pounds of food in 2019. We've already distributed that now. So we'll be more than doubling what we put out last year as a result of the need in this community. And I just can't stress enough that people who were gainfully employed suddenly were not. They've never had to access, they've never had to rely on us, Lauren, you and I, they've never had to. And they don't even know where to go to find this food. So it's not only have we changed our supply chain and distribution model, we've had to change how we find people. So it's just been, it's been one learning experience after another, and expected to continue that at least through mid-year 2021. So that we've had a 100% increase in the amount of food. We had a 45% increase at our mobile pantries in the new people coming to get food from All Faiths Food Bank.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Lauren now, but that was sobering to think that this problem of unemployment and hunger is going to be a lasting one. Lauren, just when all of the hotel industry, everybody stopped providing you food, the need and hunger in Israel just exploded. Tell us, who's hungry in Israel? What is the increase in need? Tell us what's going on in Israel.
Sure. Listen, it's a lot like what Sandra just described. We're seeing a 100% increase for food assistance in some of the hardest hit locations. Jerusalem, South Tel Aviv. Eilat is just off the charts. If anybody's familiar with that resort city, it's almost totally dependent on tourism. So they went from 3% unemployment in March to 70%. It's since come down a bit. It's probably close to 40 now. But we used to collect thousands and thousands of meals per day just from that one city, from all the mega resorts there, 24 hotels just in Eilat, and now we're only collecting 600 meals. We're looking at 21% unemployment across all of Israel, which is up from about 4% in March. And, the demand for food is just soaring. People who have never needed food assistance are suddenly, as Sandra said, where do I go? What do I do? How do I feed my kids? You have cases where both parents suddenly lost their jobs, especially if they're in, the hospitality sector, working in a restaurant or a hotel. But even one parent losing their job can be catastrophic for a lot of families. So, we're seeing a lot of that, a lot of first timers who are coming into the nonprofits that we serve, that we provide food to, just, for the first time ever. Some of our partners are reporting double and even triple the demand for food. And I think that this is just going to worsen in the short term as people's savings run out, and they still have to pay their rent, they still have to pay their mortgages. So we're going to be in this for the long haul and keep doing what we're doing right now. We've had, our own donors come to us and say, I've been giving to you for years and now I need food myself. I wouldn't be surprised if you heard the same thing, Sandra, in your, own community, that people who were giving and happily contributing are now suddenly, one day they're not employed anymore and now they need food. So we're expecting that to continue, unfortunately, for some time. And we're doing everything we can to be prepared for that, for the long haul.
Wow. I did not know about that in a lot. Look, I think a lot of us who like to give to food banks, one of the things that means something to me is, I know when you give to food bank, it's going to someone who's absolutely in need, because if someone needs a bag of green beans, they need a bag of green beans. You're getting someone who's most sincerely in need. But to hear that a city in Israel has gone from 3% unemployment to 70% unemployment, it just underscores how one gift to a food bank can just hit the need right where it's greatest, guaranteed. Wow. I want to turn to Sandra for this next question, because this is really more of a local one. Let me just, here's Sandra. I'm hearing a lot about from some of my friends or other acquaintances that people are, just really doing what they can to help people they know. Like, they know someone who's, underemployed right now and they're giving them an extra tip, or, people that the someone on the wait staff, they know they're the only one being served that day, so they triple the tip or something. But every time I hear these stories, it makes me worried, because what I'm worried about are the people we don't see, because the ones who are most devastated aren't visibly present. And we, most of us on this call, there's two Sarasotas, and most of us on the call are on one side of Sarasota, which is better off, and we're using services we're not providing. So when a restaurant that we used to go to is closed now, we don't know how to reach our favorite waiter and help them out right now and ask how you're doing. Who are we not seeing? Mm-hmm. Where is the hidden need in Sarasota that someone like me, who lives in a lovely little neighborhood, and everyone I know is in my lovely little neighborhood, who am I not seeing that is really in need, that might be a mile away from me?
That's what I was going to say. It's someone in your neighborhood. And what we've been doing is we've been taking these unemployment figures and the SNAP, which is food stamp applications, and analyzing that to find out where these new pockets of hunger are. And you can imagine these are in communities that no one ever thought of as impoverished. But these are people who are newly displaced, newly unemployed, and we're finding them in pockets all over Sarasota County, and trying to be much more targeted in terms of reaching them. I think we're still experiencing, as I mentioned before, this is an entirely new way to talk to people who are going to not feel comfortable hearing the word charitable food relief. They just never thought of themselves that way. Yet they are hungry, yet their kids don't have enough to eat. So we have to find them and then find a way to make it all right. So there's no guilt and there's no shame and no stigma with coming to get groceries through a food bank. So they are in our neighborhoods They live 3 blocks down. They are people who not only served, they have been working at our favorite restaurant, but I'm finding that they are people who are also professionals in marketing and finance, financial and wealth planning. People you wouldn't imagine have been displaced as a result of this pandemic.
All right, so I'm going to ask the same question now, first to you and then to Lauren. What surprised you, in this? Can you share a story or something that just caught you off guard? What are the things that you didn't see coming?
I don't think I saw any of this coming, and I don't think I didn't want to believe, like probably everyone on this conference. I didn't want to believe that this was long term. I thought we'd be done with this. Didn't you think we'd be done with this by July? And so our planning was 3 months out. This planning now is 12 to 18 months, and we're hoping that we're not being naive by thinking it's a 12 or 18 month dilemma now. Surprised me the most was so many things, but this sort of instant unemployment and 2 to 4 weeks later, not having enough money to buy food. Surprised, stunned, and was deeply hurtful to see that with people that we all know, who are banquet managers that we know by name and we know their families. It's happening to them.
Unbelievable. Thank you, Sandra. Same question to you, Lauren. What has surprised you and your colleagues at Yoqhed in Israel?
Sure. One of the things that surprised me personally was just how many elderly people that we serve normally just really have no place to turn. And if we don't deliver that meal to them, provide that meal, I was surprised how many just have no family that they can count on. There's no one to step in, step up, and ensure that they are fed and have something decent to eat that day. I knew this, but it was just seeing it was really highlighted throughout this pandemic, how so many elderly people, including Holocaust survivors, are truly alone in the country. That's why we really prioritized our hot meal distribution to them, because we don't normally distribute very much door to door. We do a little bit, but we mainly distribute to soup kitchens and different types of food banks. But in their case, we were making sure that we had someone go to their door. We had almost no volunteers available, so we were really relying on our staff, and they were working extended hours in full protective gear, masks in 95, 98, 100-degree heat, because they couldn't let these people go without food. They wouldn't do it. They didn't want to. And we just felt like we can't leave these people who are isolated alone in their apartments with nothing to eat. And we also didn't feel comfortable sending them out and telling them, even if their soup kitchen was open, we just felt like that was too risky to send them out into the open, so to speak, and tell them to go stand in line or whatever and wait for that food. So that was surprising to me a bit, just to see how much how little support they had in terms of family and neighbors and things like that. But the other side of it is, what was really encouraging was the camaraderie that I saw and that we witnessed with Israelis, everyone helping each other, Israelis digging really, really deep. Even those who had been hurt themselves were doing everything that they could to financially support their friends and neighbors. Corporations in Israel really stepped up. Some of the major companies, the major corporations, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, they had unused vehicles when the pandemic broke out, and they lent them to us. So we were able to make use of those huge trucks and deliver excess produce to people who very, very much needed it. So that was really nice to see, seeing people come together.
Unbelievable. So just say that again. So you're saying like McDonald's trucks in Israel, other corporations just said, use our trucks.
They just, yeah, and I feel like that's the Israeli spirit, and that's really what it is, because they didn't need them, or they didn't need all of them, and they just came together and they worked with us and they made it happen, and they gave us the use of those trucks, which we so desperately needed, and people needed in order to get their food. So it was great having
Wow.
that partnership.
Lauren, I want to feed the Holocaust survivors who have no one taking care of them. What can I do? How do I donate right now to Yoqhed, Israel?
Sure. Thank you for asking that. It's very easy to make a donation. You can go right onto the website, www.yoqhed.org/en. Oh, that's terrific. Okay, so you can see it right there. So yes, it's yoqhed.org/en for the English site. All amounts are much needed and appreciated. Every dollar rescues about 7 pounds of produce or 1 hot meal. We actually have a donor right now in North Jersey who is offering to match all new donations over $1,000 or increased donations. So if that is applicable to anyone, then your donation will be matched in full. The other thing that people can do is just to let their friends know that this is a real crisis in Israel, a very serious situation. A lot of people don't realize what the numbers are, and that 1/4 of the population lives below the poverty line in Israel. Let people know that food rescue is the most effective and efficient way to feed people. We're making use of existing resources, helping the environment by not allowing all of this fresh produce and cooked food go into landfills. You can tell people by having them reach out to me directly if they have questions. You can host a virtual parlor meeting, which we're doing a lot of right now. We're happy to come into your community virtually any way that you like and help spread the word.
All right, so please, you can give right now to Yoqhed.org, LEKET.org, or if you want to get involved more, or if you want to make like a special gift, that's not just put it on your credit card on the website, please come see me, send me an email, give me a call, and I will get you all of Lauren's contact information or put you in touch with some people here locally in Sarasota who are real active. Maybe you want to invite Lauren via Zoom to a gathering for all of your friends to hear about what's going on in Israel, feeding hungry people. Thank you, by the way, Lauren. Same question. I'm going to go to Sandra now. Sandra, so many of us are used to volunteering and we can't volunteer.
No.
We can't help you out with our hands. Maybe we can make a gift. Maybe we can make a donation. What can we do right now to help feed the people who are hungry, our neighbors right here, our obligation to our fellow neighbors here in Sarasota?
So I am going to echo what Lauren is saying about telling people that you know that this need is here and that it's long term. And support is going to be needed today, and support is going to be needed over the next 12 to 18 months. I just would like to remind everybody that we have a match right now that's out there and available. And every gift that you give is matched 1-for-1 by Mary Kay and Joe Hansen, who very generously offered a $500,000 match, and another inspired donor added $100,000 to it. So there's a $600,000 match available. But please be mindful that it's today, absolutely, and it's going to be next year. And it's just going to be a long-term sustained need, and your support will be needed long-term and sustained. You mentioned volunteers. We're opening it up again. And to all of you, we're opening it up again, masked and gloved, but we have volunteer opportunities, and we very much need your help because we have added an additional 17 distribution sites this month, and we need volunteers to help with that as well. Be mindful that we're still not taking food distributions at this point, food donations. Thank you.
All right, so I want to just make a special announcement in addition to that. I just looked over the gallery view. About half the people on the call right now are members of Temple Emanu-El, as am I. So I just want to give you a special word. We have a team through our Starfish initiative. We've taken on more responsibility for food distribution. So if you want to do some hands-on giving, you can do it through our Starfish initiative. Because the food pantry had to close at Wilkinson with the pandemic, the food bank has given us new responsibility. So if you want to be out there, you can through that. And also, but if you want to make a donation directly, of course, go to allfaithsfoodbank.org, go to allfaithsfoodbank.org, make a gift. But if you're a member of Temple Emanu-El, don't do that. We sent you a link yesterday to everybody. Use that link. You can give directly to All Faiths Food Bank, but it gives credit to the temple because we want to be 4 years in a row biggest food drive in Sarasota. So of course it goes to the same place, but it gets like a little tag on it that says it came from a temple member as part of our high holiday drive. So use that link if you're going to give, or just write a check to All Faiths Food Bank, mail to the temple, and we send them off to All Faiths, and you can do that as well. But if you want to get more involved, look up on this call. There's Denise Kotler, there's Andrea Castleberry. There are some of the leaders of All Faiths Food Bank are here. Several of our temple members, by the way, are on the board of the food bank. If you want to get more involved, you see me and I will connect you to the people. If you want to make a special gift right now, not just put something on the credit card. If you want to make a kind of special gift, please come see me. Come see Denise, Andrea, or Sandra, and they will help make that so. So now I'm going to turn now to Nell Miller, just a brief word from Nell Miller and Tommy Bernstein. So here's two that don't need introduction. These are two of the most critical leaders of the Jewish community here in Sarasota, whether it's our Jewish Federation or Israel Tennis Centers or All Faiths Food Bank or Yoqhed. Look, you are people that we trust. And Nell, I'm going to ask you first if you can go ahead and unmute if you haven't already. Nell, you have only so much that you can give. Why do you choose to give to food banks, to people who are hungry? Why is that your choice in philanthropy?
Well, I'm a Jewish mother. I have to feed everybody. I have said this over and over again since I got involved initially with All Faiths Food Bank, in addition to being blown away by how complicated a business it is. It's not simply food in and food out. It's a logistical nightmare to me, but they have it down to a science. I really do feel that making sure people have food, and I will preface it with healthy food, is an inalienable right. I think that I think that food and housing and education and medicine, I mean, there are a lot of basic needs that we have. But if we don't feed people, anything else that we can possibly do for them doesn't matter. We need to eat. It's not a choice. It's a necessity. So I can't imagine waking up in the morning and having to make the decision between whether I can fill my car with gas to get to work, if I even have work, or feed my child. And I don't know how somebody, I always make the passionate, compelling plea for help, because I don't know how people can survive that, anybody. And the fact that we live here in paradise, and there are so many people right here, and even more in DeSoto County, which has a bigger problem, even in terms of numbers, not quantity, but the percentage of people there who need our help. I don't know how we can sit here and look out the window and watch the dolphins jump in the bay while we know that our neighbors and the people who help us live these charmed and very fortunate lives struggle. All Faiths Food Bank is a trusted, beloved organization in this community, and the community has really stepped up. I mean, it has been so generous throughout this pandemic and continues to be. I think, you know, I can speak for all of us and say we've really been blown away by the response as we've had to change our paradigm to meet the need, because we can't do things the way we always did. The staff and the board are innovative and entrepreneurial, and they're risk takers and willing to, you know, fudge it up if they have to in order to get to a place where we can do it right. And we have really stepped up. We know we're not meeting the full need, but, you know, to us, ending hunger, if it means we give everybody food, that's what we're going to do. And they don't stop. They just don't stop. So, you know, as someone in the community watching what happens there, it's just unbelievable. The machine is unbelievable, but the passion and the commitment and the joy that they all receive by being there themselves is unbelievable. And I can tell you that as being on the board and having had the honor of serving as chair of the board for the last 3 years, it is one of the greatest opportunities I've ever had to feel like I can help make a difference.
Thank you, Nell. Nell, I'm going to talk to one of your partners too, Tommy Bernstein. Tommy, you're in the spotlight now. Same question, Tommy. You are a discriminating man. You are careful. You investigate, you research where you give. Why do you choose to give to hunger relief with your precious money?
Well, I think it really gets down to, it's the basics. Nell sort of said it right. You got to eat. People need food. You talk about the summer hunger program that we have here, and these kids get out of school in late spring, and then their one meal a day at school is not there. And that started 6 years ago here, and I was already involved in the food bank, but it's like a light bulb. And that caught on, and it really has been so successful. Terry Vitale and I co-chaired the campaign last 2 years, and you see the people that want to come out. But for our family, we were given to food banks in Pittsburgh before, and you know, Rabbi Glickman, you talked about the food bank before I got involved in it on the board, and there's no doubt that we were going to support it. But now that I got on the board over the last 4 or 5 years, it wakes you up to all the needs in the community. I don't have to repeat all the words that were spoken about the need. I did go to Israel a couple of years ago with Nell Miller, who's on the call, and we made a special visit to Yoqhed and saw the founder, Joe Gitmer,
Yes.
right? Who talk about passion. This is passion. You think Rabbi Glickman has passion. This guy is unbelievable what he created there in his own vision with what he did there and what he's done for the Israelis. So all I could say is, for all those that are on, I'm sure everybody on the call here, you wouldn't be on the call if you didn't have a charitable side to you. And it really gets down to where the priorities are. And to me, the priorities are the basics. And this is true charity. So to us, we're honored to be supporting both the food bank, All Faiths and Yoqhed. And we're going to continue to do as much as we can for those that are in need.
And thank you, Tommy, for everything you have done and the extra effort you are making right now when the need is greatest. Friends, I'm going to cancel all the spotlights for a moment. We're going to open up the floor to your questions. We were hoping to be an hour. We're actually an hour, but we didn't get to your questions yet. So if someone has to go, you have to go. And please don't be bashful about that. But we are going to open up the floor for particular questions, particularly for our featured speakers, but it could be for any of the 4 presenters. And if you want to just wave your hand vigorously, or there's a raise your hand function in the on Zoom. Either way, you can just wave your hand, and we will call on you, either me or Denise. Okay, Marnie Mount, please unmute yourself and you're the first question.
Hi, everybody. So I guess it's more for Sandra and All Faiths Food Bank, because I want to kind of stay local for our teens. I'm the STEP Shapiro Teen Engagement Program chair at the Federation, and we're always looking for our teenagers to do something local for the Jewish community or the community in general. And of course, we're doing most things virtually still for a while, but is there anything mostly virtual, very small groups safely, anything that their teenagers can get involved in with All Faiths at this point in time?
So I am going to ask Denise. Denise is the lead on our volunteer programs. And as I mentioned, we're opening up volunteer opportunities. So this is a new variation, Denise, on whether teens can safely volunteer with All Faiths Food Bank.
Hi, thank you, Marnie. At this time, teens are welcome to work in our sorting room and pack those boxes that we're giving out through the drive-through distributions. It's quite safe. It's limited to 10 people at a time, socially distanced as they go through the assembly line, as well as masked. So if you go on to the website, you can find the volunteer information, or just contact me. I will send you my contact in the chat box.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we're looking at any other questions. Just go ahead and raise your hand vigorously for a minute so I can see it. I don't see questions. All right, then I'm going to offer our thanks now before we close the program. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take about 30 seconds to offer some words of thanks, and then we're going to have like a little after party, I guess to say, where anyone who wants to stick around, you didn't feel like I could ask my question in front of everybody because I just wanted to tell one person this one thing, you can do that in just a minute. But first, I wanted to say thank you. I already did Kim Adler, but she's gone now. But if you see Kim Adler, who sees anyone anymore? When you call Kim Adler and say thank you for putting together, with this program. Thank you, Denise Kotler. Denise is professionally one of the leaders of All Faiths Food Bank. Privately, she's one of the leaders of our temple, and so. We're really helpful, and thanks for being my partner in organizing this call. Thank you to all of the sponsors, the Social Action Committee at Temple Emanu-El. Thank you, the Brotherhood of Temple Emanu-El. Thank you to our participants. It's Sandra Frank and Lauren Yoqhed are very busy right now. We're really grateful that they took an hour out of their schedule to be with us. And so if you don't mind, they'll see you clapping, especially if they put on gallery view, they can see you clapping. Let us offer our thanks to them. Thank you to the Jewish Federation for all that they've done in the past, and again today. Thank you, attendees. Look, the Torah commands us that we cannot stand idly by while our neighbor bleeds, and our neighbor is in need right now. Our Torah commands us to offer up some of our food, some of our bounty to the poor, the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. You care, and thank you for being here, for showing with the support of your heart, for being here. I encourage you to get involved. If that means just making a donation, make a donation. If you want to get more involved with either of these two organizations, just stick around for a minute, or just reach out to me and I'll connect you to the right person. I will tell you, as being someone who's worked and spent a lot of time at All Faiths and at Yoqhed, the reward, there's many rewards, but one special reward is you find yourself surrounded by the very best people. And who doesn't need that in their lives? How can you surround yourself with the most caring, generous, wonderful, kind people? Get involved with Yoqhed, get involved with All Faiths Food Bank, and you'll look left and right and know you're in the right place. And now, with that, everybody's excused. If our presenters are willing to stay a couple minutes for, you know, someone to say, oh, where in New Jersey are you? Or whatever you want to say, we can do that now. Thank you, Rich Fine. Thank you, everybody who helped promote this event. Thank you all. And you don't need to be called on at this moment. If you want to unmute yourself and say a hi or a thanks or whatever you want to do, just feel free. And if it gets out of hand, I'll tell people to mute again.
Thanks, Denise, for getting on the truck and helping distribute the food.
What'd you say, Mona? We missed the first word.
Oh, I said to Denise, I thanked her for, instead of being behind the desk, she got on the truck and was distributing food.
Just for clarity, I did not drive that truck. My boss is watching me. I gave out the food.
And just, you know, I just wanted to say, you know, Nell says she's a Jewish mother. I'm a, you know, a parent, Jewish parent too. I worry you on a truck, you know, just be careful.
Oh, me, she was on.
Be careful on that truck.
Jewish girls from Brooklyn really don't drive trucks. We should know that.
I just want to echo the thanks for this wonderful program and bringing everyone together. For those who know me, I'm Josh Melitz, and with the investment in bringing together the communities of Israel and Sarasota, both professionally as Jewish National Fund and personally seeing the efforts that all of you are having in both of our homelands. It's really incredible to see, and the power of just one person and one meal, what that can mean. And I did have a more technical question that I wanted to hold off. My understanding about one of the challenges that food collection faces, at least in the United States, it's very bureaucratic in terms of what is acceptable for food, in terms of whether it's from the waste and how it can be collected. And I'm curious if that's been sort of cut through the red tape with everything that's been happening, and the need is so great, and if in Israel that's a similar issue that's being faced as well.
Could you give me just a little bit of more of a description of bureaucratic, because these are large retailers that donate the food to us. So
right.
I want to make sure I'm answering.
Maybe it means more, you know, because you see, you know, like for grocers that is just sitting on their, you know, for the food, it's more like food that is being thrown away. Maybe that's more specific. It's, you know, maybe it's a little more different of a category than you'd be dealing with. But from my understanding, there's certain restrictions that, you know, it can't just go from being thrown away at a Publix to being donated, you know, if it's considered, you know, if it's spoiled, or in fact, it can be litigious that they don't want to be held liable in case someone gets sick from it, something along those lines, if that's more specific.
Okay, thank you. So some of this has been negotiated by our national office, Feeding America, which has contractual relationships with the very large retailers like Walmart's and Publix and Kroger, but H-E-B, you know, the big ones around the country. So they've negotiated that relationship at the national level, and our job, and of course the local retailer knows that our job is to make friends, get out there and build that relationship at the local level. That may not have been true 10 years ago. It's Feeding America that has really built these close relationships, and I'm finding that retailers see it in their best interest to be magnanimous and generous. With regard to litigation, there's, oh, you said that and I've lost the name of it, but there's federal law that protects unless it is egregious and food is given in bad faith. So if it's sitting there rotting on their dock and they still give it to us and we distribute and someone gets sick, they could still be liable. But for the most part, they're quite conscientious about it. Just to say, we're grateful that Feeding America has those relationships.
Yeah, and Josh, you mentioned this. I can give you a little compare and contrast in America and Israel, because it's odd that some things are easier here and harder in Israel, and then vice versa. So for instance, here, you don't have collection of prepared foods, which is fundamental in Israel. You know, every major catering hall, you know, is giving to Yoqhed. Every major, you know, restaurant, hotel, army bases now. We don't have that equivalent here. So maybe someday in America, we can collect that kind of food waste that Israel is doing so super efficiently. But that is very volunteer intensive, which is why like it has 50,000 volunteers. A lot of them, you know, are just collecting the food and taking it a mile away to the, you know, to the food pantry and so forth. But they have to be very careful about making sure it's heated to the right temperature or it's chilled to the right temperature, you know, and so forth. But it was interesting, Israel didn't have something that in America had, which was the Good Samaritan law. In America, if your heart intent is doing good as just a volunteer, you were basically protected, and they did not have that protection in Israel. And it was a major liability that Yoqhed for years tried to get and just got. So now in Israel, they don't call it the Good Samaritan because Samaritans are still around in Israel. And they're like, you know what I mean? You know, you're familiar. So they're not going to call it the Good Samaritan. They're like, why would you call it that? But they now, for the first time, it just happened this, you know, past year, has a Good Samaritan law in Israel that sort of we Americans naturally assume if we're, you know, volunteering for an organization, Meals on Wheels, you know, and we inadvertently, you know, run over the person we're delivering food to, that we're, you know, that we have some basis of protection. In Israel now, they have that too. So, but America, I hope America someday could collect prepared foods.
Well, and the other thing is with regard to the food bank that I've learned over the years is we are so highly regulated. I mean, we are audited by everybody and everybody else every year. So, you know, when we get pallets of food from Walmart or Publix, you know, there's an expiration date on that. We have guidelines as to how long that food really is good for, because we all know that what it says in the supermarket isn't necessarily the reality. You know, a can may have another year's worth of time to it, but you know, so it is so highly regulated that adds another layer of complication to distribution. So it's got to come in quickly and go out fairly quickly, but it also makes it very difficult to take food that's been opened and repackaged and heated and cooled and frozen and reheated and, you know, so on to distribute. And there are organizations that deliver hot food like Meals on Wheels, but they make their own food. They don't collect. Right?
Right.
But they get their food from All Faiths Food Bank.
Some of it, yeah.
Some of it do.
Some of it, yes.
Well, the floor is open if anyone wants to say a special hi or bye before we close up. Judith, yes, please unmute yourself.
Okay, are you unmuted? Okay. Ike and I are fairly new to Sarasota and are really at the cusp of realizing we probably will be here as permanent residents. This was an amazingly impressive gathering and information. I think we're ready to transfer a lot of our energy from Richmond, Virginia to Sarasota, which we've been hesitant to do. So thank you very much. This was an excellent program and nice to meet all of you. You may see us again. Thank you.
Hope so. We hope so.
Carol Friedman, are you raising your hand? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, there's a lot of thank yous. I don't know where to begin, but I do have family that live in Israel. So this was very interesting and an eye-awakening that the problems that they do have there, I was not aware because, you know, thank God my family there is doing well. And, you know, we don't talk about the people who need, but now I feel like I can share with them and try to get them to maybe get in touch with somebody there that they can help, you know, because I'm not sure if they're aware of the groups that you have, but I can get in touch with them and ask them if they can, you know, help them at their end, which would be very rewarding to me. And I want to thank everybody who put all these efforts in to make this possible that we can all hear. I was very instrumental last year. I helped Carol Green out on the distribution of the food. And we were here when the trucks were here. And it was unbelievable how they put all these things on the truck with this
She's talking about the
mechanical,
Yom
everything
Kippur
was like
food
mechanical.
drive.
Right, it was just unbelievable. We took pictures, lots of pictures, and we did share them with our temple. So I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to volunteering and finding out more information how I can help a little hands-on. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
You.
Good.
I want to thank everybody for coming and speaking and telling us and telling those that didn't know what Yoqhed and Food Bank does here and in Israel.
Thanks, Mona.
You're welcome, doll. I got to do it for Denise, my favorite. I'm sorry, and you, and that's been your favorite. That and
It's good to see you up and about, Mona. You're looking good.
Thanks, sweetie.
And I've seen Mona pick tomatoes in
Oh.
where was
Israel.
it? Rehovot? I can't remember where. She was
I don't
picking
remember.
tomatoes.
8 years ago.
Yeah. So you've been involved with both organizations.
Yes. And that's when I found out about them getting food from the IDF, and I was so shocked that they were able to take, because in the United States, I knew we couldn't take prepared food at that time.
Hal
they-
Munter, you got called out during the presentation. Hal, you want to say hi or share anything?
Yeah, sure. I'm kind of, as my cohorts know, I'm reticent to talk or ask questions or whatever. Nell knows that. Being on the board of All Faiths Food Bank, being a contributor to Yoqhed, Tommy and I went to Israel on another charity mission, but we went to Yoqhed, and Joseph Gittler, he is a force to be reckoned with. He's an American. He was in his family business. I don't recall, I think it was in the US, might have been in Israel, and he decided to just go out on his own. He started this from nothing, and Lauren Yoqhed had talked about him, but to meet him, well, to know him is to love him. Be a good song. It's a great organization, All Faiths Food Banks. It's an honor for me to be involved with both organizations.
Thank you. And all right, so I think we're going to go. I want to take a couple quick pictures. Sandra, can you just smile for just a quick minute?
A real smile?
Yeah, a real one. This will be for the newspaper. All right, 3, 2, 1, and boom. And I'm sorry if it bothered. If anyone needs to go, you can go. I need to do the same for Lauren in just a minute. And let me pin your video. There it is. Okay, Lauren, your picture in 3, 2, 1. Thank you. And good. All right. So, and then Kim, I won't be in trouble, so we can put it in the Jewish News. And I don't want to get in trouble. So, guys, this is really wonderful. Again, we don't have to go, but if you got to go, you got to go. Thank you to our speakers again. And I don't know if you want to talk to each other or anything, but thank you.
I thought everyone was wonderful. Thank you all. You know how I feel. And Brenner, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Terrific.
Thank you, Brenna.
Thank you, Laura.
It was wonderful.
All of you.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.